Hello, you're welcome to my tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to discuss likely examination questions. This tutorial is going to be in two parts. We are going to have the first part dedicated to vectors and then matrices, and then the second part dedicated to questions coming from if statements and then for and then the while loop. So without wasting time, let's dig into this. So we have our first question right here, asking us the number of elements in a vector generated by this. So this simply means that we have a vector starting from 4 in steps of 0.1 up to 13. So how do we find the number of elements in this vector? Okay, so programmatically we could have said x to be equal to 4, and then in steps of 0.1 up to 13. And then what you could have done is call the length function on this. So when we call the length of x, we can now find the value, the answer to be what? 91. Okay, so how do we calculate this manually? So with this, the simple way to calculate this is to subtract the lowest element from the highest element and then divide it by the steps you are moving. So in our case, you are going to have 13 minus 4, and whatever we get, we divide by 0.1, but we get 90. But to get a correct answer, it should be 13 minus 4 and then divided by 0.1 plus 1. So that will give us the answer to this question. Okay, so this is how to simply solve it, and then I'm going to show the second question. So this is our second question, and it's same type of question. So we have a vector starting from 2 in steps of 0.5 and then up to 7. So I could equally say x is equal to 2 in steps of 0.5 up to 7, and then I could call the length of x, and then I get 11. So subtracting and then find the answer, let's work it out and see what you get. So we have 7 minus 2, and whatever we get, we divide it by the steps we are moving, which is 0.5, and then add 1 to it. So we have 10 plus 1, and so that gives us the answer. So this is how to tackle this type of question. Let's move on to our next question. So with our next question, we have a series or a sequence asking us to write a simple MATLAB command to find the number of elements inside this particular sequence. So when you observe this sequence, you can see that it starts from 1/3 and it also ends somewhere, which is 31/3. And then we have it has a common difference, which is 1/2. So meaning subtracting 1/3 from 5/6 gives us 1/2, and subtracting 5/6 from 4/3 also gives us 1/2. So because of this, you can write this sequence in a simple command such as this. So we can say starting from 1/3. So we are writing a vector which will give us this sequence. So starting from 1/3 in steps of 0.5, and then ending at 31/3. So this will be the simple code to give us this particular sequence. So I can press enter on this, and then this is the sequence, but we're not asked to provide this. We're asked to provide a simple code to get this sequence. So let's move on to our next question. So our next question is to teach us about logical operators. Okay, so we have x greater or equal to 3. So what happens when we apply logical operators on vectors? When you apply logical operators on vectors, it checks the condition, and then when it is true, it returns 1, and then when it is false, it returns 0. So let's see this. We have x being equal to a vector which is 2, 3, and then 2, 3, and 4. And we have z being equal to x greater or equal to 3. So what will happen is MATLAB is going to go into X, and then it is going to check, is 2 greater or equal to 3? No, that's not true. So it's going to return what? 0. And then it's going to go to the next one, and then the next one is going to say, is 3 greater or equal to 3? That's true, so it's going to return 1. And then it's also going to go to the next one, is 4 greater or equal to 3? That's also true, so it's going to return 1. So let's see what we get. So z is equal to x greater or equal to what? 3. So you run this and display z, you can see that z is equal to 0, 1, 1 from what we have. So 2 is not greater or equal to 3, so because of that we have what? 0, which means false. So moving on to our next question, we have a matrix A, and we are asked to find sub-elements of this particular matrix. So before we move on to the question, there is something I want to draw your attention to. We all know that a matrix is a two-dimensional array, and because of this, to access any element, we know we are supposed to access them column and then row wise. So for example, if we needed the 10 here, we would say row 2 column what? 2, and that will bring us the 10 here. But what happens if you have A? Let me first enter the matrix. So A, which is equal to, we have 16, 3 and 2, we have 5, 10 and 11, and we have 9, 6 and 7. So this is the matrix. So what happens when I do A of 7? What happens? So since this is a two-dimensional array, we expected that we will have the row and then the column to be able to access the 4 elements. But when you put this into MATLAB, this will also give you an answer. So what MATLAB is going to do is that it's going to go column wise and then count up to the 7th element. So by counting, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 and 7. So the 7th element is going to be what? 2, counting column wise. Okay, so 2 is going to be our answer. Let's try it out and see what you get. So we get 2. Normally we would have done A 1, 3, and that should also give us 2. All right, so this is a simple trick to know before exams. Now moving to our question, we have A1 and then colon. Okay, so A1 colon simply means that give us the whole of what? The first row. That's what it simply means. So if you have A2 colon, this simply means that give us what? The whole of what? The second row. So our second row is 5, 10 and 11. When we press enter, we get 5, 10 and what? 11. So that's about this simple indexing. And then similarly we have A colon comma 1. So this should also return the whole of what? Our column, or the whole of our first column. And our first column is given by 16, 5 and 9. So let's see what we get. We get 16, 5 and 9. But what of the third one? So there is something to know about MATLAB too here. MATLAB does not only take integers as indexes. MATLAB can also take vectors as indexes. So the best way to do this is to show you an example. So I'm going to say A. I'm just going to display the A, and then we have A, then we can have 1, 2 and 3, which is a vector, comma, and then I can have 1 and 3, which is also a vector. So what we are just doing here is we have replaced having something like A 2 2 2 3 with something like A and then a vector and then a vector. Okay, so how does MATLAB process this type of data? What MATLAB is going to do is that it's going to say, okay, so go to the first row and then get me the first and the third what element. So that will form our first row, and then it's also going to say go to the second row and get me the first and what? The third element, and that will be our second row. and then go to the third row and then bring me the first and third. So in all we should get 16 2, 5 11, and then 9 7. So let's see what we get. So now I press enter, we get 16 2, 5 11, and 9 7. Okay, so let's bring this to our question we have here. We have a 1 is to end, then comma 1 is to end minus 1. What does this mean? Now a 1 is to end is going to give us a vector. So end simply means what is the number of rows we have, or what is the end of the rows we have in this particular matrix. So looking at the matrix, we have 3 by 3, which means we have 3 rows and 3 columns, and so we are going to get what? The end being equal to 3. And we all know that having 1 is to 3 is also a vector, which gives us 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so this is what we are going to get in the row part. In the column part right here, having 1 is to end minus 1. What does this mean? This means starting from 1 and then the end is going to be 3, because we have 3 columns, and then subtracting 1 from it, it gives us what? 2. So because of this, you have something like 1 2, and 1 to 2 is the same as 1, a vector containing 1 and what? 2. So what you're going to do is to replace the 1 is to end and 1 is to end minus 1 by these two vectors, and then we can easily calculate what our answer is going to be. So I'll replace this place by the vector 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to replace this one too by the vector 1 and 2. What MATLAB is going to do is that we have go to the first row, get me the first and second element, which will be this and this. Go to the second row, get me the first and second element, which will be 5 and 10. Go to the third row, bring me the first and second element, which is 9 and 6. So when we enter this, we are expecting to have 5 3, 16 3, 5 10, and then 9 6. So let's see what we get, and exactly that's what we get. So this question is also similar to the last one. Okay, so you can use the same approach to solve that one too. But what of this one, the last but one? So I'm going to clear. Now when you have a matrix and then you do a and then colon, what it simply means is that bring me all the elements inside the matrix, but it will bring this inside the matrix. It will bring all the elements inside the matrix in a column form. Okay, but our question is requesting the transpose. This small sign here, means what? Transpose. So if it's a column vector, it's going to turn into a row vector, and then when it's a row vector, it's going to turn into a column vector. So a colon is going to bring us the column vector of this whole matrix. Let's press enter and see what we get. So we get a column vector of this whole matrix moving column wise, so which is 6 5 9 3 10 6 and so forth. So our question is requesting the transpose of this, which is going to be a colon and then transpose. This transpose will change it and give the answer in a row form. So let's see our next question, and then I'm going to leave you to solve the next question on your own. It's the same thing as what we have just done now. We have, suppose A is equal to this matrix, and then what would B look like if B is equal to A, and then we have colon here, comma 1 2. So I want you to try calculating this manually on your own, and then trying it in MATLAB and see the answer and compare your answer whether you get the same thing. So if you like the video, share it with your friends, and then don't forget to subscribe and like the videos as well. Okay, I'll see you in the second part of this tutorial. Thank you for watching.